8. Richard Spencer. After separating from her husband Doug in 2010, 31-year-old Venus Stewart packed up the couple's 2 daughters and moved from Virginia back to her hometown in Michigan, where she stayed with her parents. And mysteriously, she went out to the mailbox one morning and never returned. Venus had just won custody of the children, leading investigators to suspect her estranged husband of being involved in her disappearance. Doug told them he was in Virginia when Venus vanished, and initially his alibi checked out. But surveillance footage of his alleged whereabouts that day showed a man claiming to be Doug wearing sunglasses and a hoodie with the hood pulled up. Witnesses admitted that they couldn't confirm whether the person in the video was Doug or not. Phone records revealed that Doug corresponded with the 20-year-old man from Delaware named Richard Spencer in the days leading up to Venus's disappearance. The two played Xbox together online and met face-to-face for the first time right before Venus went missing. Spencer admitted to wearing Doug's clothes and using his credit card to create a believable ally, while Doug drove to Michigan and murdered Venus. The initial plan was called off when Doug got pulled over in Ohio, and Spencer said he tried to avoid acting as an alibi a second time. However, Doug convinced him that his children were in danger, so he reluctantly went along with it. This time, the plan succeeded. Without a body, Spencer's testimony was key in convicting Doug of Venus's murder. In exchange for his willingness to testify, Spencer pleaded no contest to conspiracy to commit manslaughter and only served a year in jail. He broke down on the stand while recounting Doug's description of the murder, and he appeared to truly regret being pressured into having any involvement in the crime. Doug remained in denial about the murder until 2018, when he offered to lead authorities to Venus's remains in exchange for 3 Xboxes for his prison unit. With most of his appeals exhausted, it appears as though he finally accepted his reality and saw the negotiation as a way to make his living situation a little more bearable. 7. Kevarian Jordan. While hanging out with some friends at Presque Isle Bay in Erie, Pennsylvania one day in 2021, 18-year-old Kevarian Jordan jumped into the water. Unfortunately, he didn't know how to swim, and it wasn't long before he was in clear need of help. Jordan's friends tried to rescue him, but they weren't able to save his life. His death was ruled accidental, but his mother, Talacia Staton, believed that peer pressure killed her son. She told local station WJET that Kevarian's friends urged him to jump into the water, even after he repeatedly told them they didn't know how to swim. Before jumping in, he warned his friends that if he looked like he was dying, they better save him. After seeing a video of the tragedy captured by a witness, Staton concluded that she didn't believe Kevarian's death was accidental. She took issue with the fact that his friends continued pressuring him to go in the water after he said multiple times that he couldn't swim. Staton told WJET that a parent of Kevarian's friends gave her money after the tragedy and offered to pay for his funeral. She suspected that the generosity came from a place of guilt, stating in her own words that perhaps the friend offered to pay for the funeral because they knew they were the reason her son was gone. Legal experts who weighed in on the matter disagreed that the money was given out of guilt and suggested that it may have been an expression of sympathy from one parent to another. They also speculated that it would be difficult to prove that Kevarian didn't voluntarily risk his life and doubted the family's ability to succeed in a lawsuit. 6. Stone Faults. During his sophomore year at Bowling Green State University in 2021, 20-year-old Stone Faults decided to join the Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity. He and other new members were told to wear suits to their initiation at the group's off-campus frat house, where they were blindfolded and led inside single file. Loud music blared, and they were pushed and yelled at by their higher-ups while being led into the basement. The blindfolds were then removed, and the new pledges were introduced to their assigned mentors, who were tasked with guiding the new members into their fraternity lifestyle. As part of their initiation, the young men were each given a bottle of liquor. They weren't explicitly told that they had to drink the entire bottle, but they were strongly pressured into it. Faults downed a bottle of whiskey in just 18 minutes. Not surprisingly, he soon began vomiting and had trouble walking. 2 higher-ranking members drove him back to his apartment, where they stayed with him for a little while and then left. The young man's roommate arrived home to find him unconscious but breathing. He called Faults his girlfriend, and the two of them looked after him. Things soon took a turn for the worse though when Foltz stopped breathing and turned blue. His girlfriend dialed 911 while the roommate performed CPR as they waited for first responders to arrive. Doctors were unable to save Foltz despite their best efforts. He was put on life support but he died 3 days later. Since then, his parents, Shari and Corey Foltz, have dedicated themselves to stomping out hazing on college campuses. They sued the university, but it wasn't about the money. The couple pursued the lowest amount required in order to file the lawsuit, $50,000, and were ultimately awarded a $3 million settlement. It was the biggest payout in a hazing case in Ohio history. 8 of the fraternity members were convicted on charges relating to the deadly hazing incident. They received sentences ranging from probation to 42 days in jail. 5. Kristen Cooper. A KFC delivery driver was working in the town of Mayaro on the island of Trinidad one night in 2023 when a man approached him pretending to be a customer who was waiting for their food. Suddenly, 3 other men rushed up to the scene and robbed the driver at gunpoint, taking his cash, cell phone, and the meal he was trying to deliver. According to a police report, responding officers took up strategic positions in pursuit of the suspects, who were hiding out in an abandoned house. When the 2 parties crossed paths, the officers ordered the suspects to surrender. But instead, the thieves opened fire and the cops shot back. 3 of the suspects were fatally shot, while the 4th suspect scaled a wall and fled the scene. A revolver and some used casings were allegedly found at the scene. The deceased suspects were identified as Zachary Gilbert, Antonio St. Rose, and Kristen Cooper. Some of their family members are challenging the officers' version of events and are wondering if the police used excessive force on the young men. Gilbert's cousin, Michelle Mohammed, told the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian that based on a witness report, the suspects were unarmed when they were shot by law enforcement. She also doubted his involvement in the robbery, wondering if perhaps he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. The police, on the other hand, see the situation differently and maintain that they abided by the department's use of force policy. One of the suspects, Antonio St. Rose, was particularly well known among law enforcement. When the deadly exchange of gunfire occurred, he'd recently served a 3-year prison sentence for armed robbery and gun charges. Zachary Gilbert had no criminal record, according to his family, who said that he wasn't involved in any illegal activity that they knew of. The youngest man involved, Kristen Cooper, stood out among investigators because he had no criminal involvement whatsoever. For this reason, they believe he may have been pressured into helping his friends commit the robbery that led to the fatal shootout with police. Cooper was known to stay out of trouble and was extremely well liked in his community, and it seemed out of character for him to be involved in a violent crime. Unfortunately, one bad decision ended his life, serving as a sobering reminder to others that it's important not to let oneself be easily influenced. 4. Jesus Camarillo. Jesus Camarillo got involved in the Sereno Street Gang at a young age. During a visit to a 7-Eleven in Sereno territory one day in 2016, Camarillo and 3 other members encountered 2 men from the rival Norteño gang. A fight broke out between the 2 parties and the Sereno members got into their car and fled the scene. Afterwards, one of the Serenos, Jorge, worried that the gang might lose respect for being driven out of their own territory. So, the group retrieved a gun and began driving around in search of their rivals, but they had a change of plans when their vehicle got a flat tire. While they were changing the tire, the Norteños approached them and challenged them to a fight. One of the Norteños, 19-year-old Sulpicio Rios, lunged at Camarillo, who responded by pulling a gun from his waistband and firing 3 bullets. Rios tried to run, but he collapsed and eventually died. Camarillo then fired 2 more shots at another gang member as he fled on foot. In court, Camarillo's defense lawyer presented evidence from a brain development expert who argued that young, undeveloped minds are especially susceptible to peer pressure. A psychologist described the defendant as a troubled adolescent with an uncertain sense of self, who would benefit from the resources he would be able to access in juvenile court. But the prosecutors managed to get the case transferred to the regular court system based on the nature of the crime, and as a result, Camarillo was tried as an adult. He was convicted of second-degree murder and attempted murder and was initially sentenced to 47 years to life. However, Camarillo won a resentencing hearing and had his term reduced to 42 years to life. And apparently, he's appealing again in hopes of further reducing his sentence. 3. Mitchell Hewitt. In early 2016, a young farmhand from New Zealand named Mitchell Hewitt got drunk with some friends, which resulted in tragic consequences. The group took a large supply of alcohol with them to Lake Kinnear on the country's southern island for what was supposed to be a fun time. Hewitt was an inexperienced drinker, but he funneled beers and played drinking games with his friends that day until he lost consciousness. Everyone drank heavily, and nobody seemed to realize that Hewitt was in grave danger after he blacked out from a combination of beer, vodka, and Midori melon liquor. They simply thought he'd passed out drunk, which is a normal thing that happens at parties when someone has a little too much to drink. But Hewitt had way too much to drink, and by the time his friends noticed that something was seriously wrong and tried to revive him, he'd already choked to death on his own vomit. A medical exam revealed that his blood alcohol content was nearly 7 times the country's limit for driving. Sergeant Kevin Tiernan told the New Zealand-based media outlet Stuff that Hewitt's death was the result of binge drinking at its worst. He described the situation as a lot of young people not drinking socially, but drinking stupidly. A coroner's inquest concluded that Hewitt's friends pressurized him to drink excessively during the gathering. The report highlighted the senseless tragedy as a sad illustration of the prevalent drinking culture in New Zealand, and it mentioned the importance of young people understanding the dangers of alcohol. Hewitt's mother, Jan, said that she harbored no resentment toward the people who supplied the alcohol. But the authorities felt differently and charged 2 suspects with supplying alcohol to an underage person. Unfortunately, their punishment remains unclear. 2. The murder of Zachary Wood. In what police described as a massive bloodletting event, a trio of killers bludgeoned 23-year-old Zachary Wood to death at his home in Wichita Falls, Texas in 2022. Authorities accused 27-year-old Peyton Collier, 18-year-old Ronnie Lang, and 28-year-old William Bell of carrying out the gruesome murder, and they believe 21-year-old Ashley Esselborn cheered the killers on. The suspects allegedly attacked Wood because they believed he stole drugs and money from them. While encouraging the violence from the sidelines, Esselborn reportedly demanded to know where the stolen items were. All 4 suspects were charged with first-degree murder as a result. Ronnie Lang pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 50 years in prison, while the other 3 cases are ongoing. Esselborn remains behind bars on a $100,000 bond, and Peyton Collier is being held on a $1 million bond. Bell posted a $200,000 bond and was released pending the outcome of the case. Hopefully, justice for Zachary Wood will be seen in the near future. 1. TikTok trend nearly kills teen. After arriving at his school in Kansas City, Missouri, one day in 2022, a young man named Jonah suddenly passed out. Upon receiving a call from a school deputy, his mother, Siobhan Foreman, rushed to the scene. When she arrived, Jonah was unresponsive. She described the terrifying sight she encountered in an interview with Fox 4, stating that Jonah's eyes were wide open and had rolled into the back of his head. He was taken to the hospital and thankfully, he survived the ordeal. Jonah said that a classmate had pressured him into taking a so-called happy pill, which appeared to be the latest dangerous challenge that was trending on TikTok at the time. Foreman described happy pills as a homemade concoction of over-the-top medicines that allegedly makes people hallucinate. A toxicology test showed that Jonah had Benadryl in his system. It's unclear what else was in the pill, but Foreman said that he almost died after taking it. Jonah said that the classmate was pressuring him to try the pill, and that he took it so they would leave him alone. A month earlier, his mother had reported the same student to the school for pressuring Jonah to try marijuana. Hopefully, the incident was a wake-up call for both of the teens. If a friend persuaded you to help them commit a crime that carries a possible 5-year sentence and the 2 of you were caught, would you admit you were pressured into it in exchange for leniency? Or would you own up to your decision and refuse to negotiate with the prosecution? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.